All right. Hope you can hear the sound. Hope everybody's doing all right tonight. You guys hear me okay? All right. Hey, Reggie, how are you, man? Naveen, hello. Doug, Charmaine, Donnie, Aaron, Carol, Martha. Everybody can hear me all right. Fantastic. Can you hear our music? Thumbs up if you can hear the music. All right, guys. Hey, this is Jim with Crawfordology, where we talk about the things that you care about, right? So glad that you guys could join us tonight, and want to remind you, if you haven't done it already, like and subscribe. I'm going to turn up my volume here just a little bit so I can make sure I'm hearing the sound. Hey, Judy. Judy just said, hey, Jim, it's Judy. Hey, Judy. All right, guys. Hey, questions. And can everybody hear the music? Can everybody hear everything? Okay. Volume is super low. Let's see. Let me turn something up. What do I need to turn up? Volume super low. I have the volume all the way up, I think, here. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Okay, I've got my first shirt comment. So my wife was teasing me earlier and said, hey, are you going to be selling paper towels? Are you coming in as the brawny lad or whatever? And she said, do I need to bring you an axe? She said, I'm going to ask you a question. There was all sorts of funny stuff. So I hope you guys can hear me. I'm going to keep watching comments. If you guys can't hear me, let me know. Okay, so Betty says the sound is great. It's better. Bruce says better. You know, one day I'm going to get really good at this, because until we go back to the studio and I have studio support, we're just going to be amateurish. It's all amateur hour here. Amateur. So, hey, I want to share with you, one, it's really good. So Brenda doesn't need the background noise. I hope that's not so bad. We have to have a little bit of music playing, Brenda. That's what gives us time to let people come in and me to wait. I don't know. It's kind of my message. Hey, listen, I'm going to jump over here. If you haven't been already to American One, the only question I have is why not? Why have you not been to American One? How could you possibly miss out? So we've got all sorts of good stories, things happening all day long throughout the day. Here it looks like the Biden administration is thinking about illegal immigrants should get the vaccine, and probably first, right? He probably wants them to get it first. So what can we say? What can we say? But when you check out things here, you can see. So if you're having trouble on YouTube or Facebook, by the way, we know that Facebook is planning on pulling, some of those other things, not allowing more and more political discussion. So that's going to get really challenging to do this on Facebook. So if you come to American One, you can actually come right over here. You can click on this. This happens anytime you pull it up on a mobile device. And we try to limit this so it only happens one time. But you can click right there and you can watch it all in real time. And if I were to go back to sharing the screen here in a minute, you would see there's just a little bit of a delay. So if you're over on American One now, you can see that it's showing the screen, but in a few seconds it'll pop back up and show the brawny Jim. So hope you guys are all doing great. We have had some crazy weather. Coming back from Miami into snow was wonderful. Not. And it looks like today, we got this news. This one? Is it this one? Okay. So old Puxatawny Phil came out, and it looks like we've got a little more time, but I'm going to let you hear it straight from the storytellers here. Here they go.
I think we have a prediction. Shingle shaker, can you read the prognostication?
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Now, this second day of February, 2021, the 135th annual trek of Punxsutawney Groundhog Club. Punxsutawney Phil, the seer of seers, the prognosticator of all prognosticators, was awakened from his burrow at 7:25 a.m. by his handler and friend on this quiet morning where few can attend. In Groundhog He's, Phil directed the president and the inner circle to his prediction scroll that reads, "It's a beautiful morning, this I can see, with all my fans viewing virtually. My faithful followers being safe and secure, our tradition of Groundhog Day must endure. We have all passed through the darkness of night, but now see hope in morning's bright light. But now, when I turn to see, there's a perfect shadow cast of me. 6 more weeks of winter there will be."
Okay, I'm just going to tell you, I don't believe that. I don't believe it anymore. I used to believe the Groundhog Day perfectly made sense, that, the groundhog knew, right? I'm like Joan. I want to recount. I want to recount too. But I noticed that Punxsutawney Phil seemed to be way less interested in this day than the people around him, right? And did you notice that? I mean, it was sort of like he was going through the motions, like, if I have to be here, I'll do it, but I really don't dig this job. I wish you guys would just leave me alone. And I'm just look. I mean, doesn't he look like he's the least interested person in this group? All these folks are pretty excited. Like, they can't wait for him to do something. He's like, just put me back in that stump. I was pretty happy back there. I was super happy. And this is the kind of insensitive Americans that we've got to deal with. We've got to deal with people like this. They dress up in hats, beaver pelt hats, and they do something really cruel to this groundhog. Now, yeah, I know farmers, you're probably disagreeing. You're probably saying, these groundhogs aren't really helpful. They're digging in my fence line. They're washing out my gullies. They're doing all sorts of things that are just messing with my world, because I know in parts of the world it is it's kind of a nuisance varmint. People shoot them, leave them wherever they shot them. So yeah, and sometimes Punxsutawney Phil can seem as useful as a Supreme Court justice or a politician in Washington. I just think that it's awful. It's awful. So sadly, it looks like Punxsutawney Phil has called out 6 more weeks of winter. Again, I'm not believing it. In fact, I'm taking happy thoughts right back down to Florida. So this article's been out in a couple of different places. In fact, it's even over on American One. Have you seen that Governor DeSantis is penalizing the folks at big tech? He said enough. We saw in the last election and lead up to the last election some of the things that they were doing. In fact, I should have shared with you, and I will get. Hey Scott, if you're here, will you post that picture that you sent to me today? I don't know if Scott's on this particular podcast, but Scott, the picture of likes. If you could see an absolute moment in time where Facebook turned us off. So it's very, very clear. It's sort of a wave comes, we have these high numbers of likes and people paying attention, and then it just drops down to 0 for the period throughout the election, and now it's started to slowly climb back up. So there's a whole bunch going on with big tech and how they're trying to manipulate the sorts of things that Americans see. So what DeSantis said is, when 2.8 million Americans choose to download the application Parler and share information with friends, family, and colleagues. What was the result of that? Canceled by Amazon, Google, and Apple. He called for an open and robust debate on issues that affect Americans rather than censorship. Big tech companies are currently engaging, in silencing anyone who doesn't see the issues from their point of view. So under this new measure announced in Florida today, in the Florida legislature, technology companies that deplatform a candidate during an election will face a daily fine of $100,000 until the candidate's access to the platform is restored. That's really good news. The other thing that they're doing is if a technology company promotes a candidate for office against another, the value of that free promotion must be recorded as a political campaign contribution enforced by the Florida Election Commission. So the bill will also empower the Florida Attorney General to bring action against big tech companies under Florida's Unfair and Deceptive Trade Practices Act if they violate the new policies laid out in the bill. So how many of us are moving to Florida now just to protect our freedom of speech? Because there you have a governor that's really speaking out against the actions that big tech is taking. And lastly, he says, if a technology company uses their content and user-related algorithms to suppress or prioritize the access of any content related to a political candidate or cause on the ballot, that company will also face daily fines. So the Florida House Speaker said, with our proposals, we are going to bring the sunshine, what I call the five families of darkness. Facebook, Twitter, Google, Amazon, and Apple, adding these actors won't go unchecked here in Florida anymore. They have access to private information, the ability to exercise control over individuals' free speech, says Sproul. So I don't know. We've talked about this. I'm very happy to see that that some government bodies are standing up against big tech. And the next time this may happen to a Democrat, and we'll then hear that it's much more important. Excuse me. So I think it's hard to not look at somebody like Rick DeSantis as a serious contender in future elections and future national elections for sure. And very popular there in Florida, doing a lot of great work there. I love what I see. So hats off to Rick DeSantis on this one. The other thing that's really popped up today, have you seen that the House Democrats have laid out the impeachment strategies for their trial? And this cracks me up. So in a Wall Street Journal article, the very first paragraph says, House impeachment managers said they were on solid constitutional ground in seeking to convict Donald Trump of inciting an insurrection ahead of January 6th the attack on the Capitol. So very, very strange that they of course want to push the idea, the belief that they are doing something that's very constitutional, yet this has never been tried before. You've never had a president impeached and tried twice. You've never had a president impeached and tried after he's left office. It makes no sense that they would try to pursue impeachment against Trump after he's gone from office. The other thing is, if you're impeaching the president, he would have to have office to be impeached. You can't just simply impeach someone for being a person. And they're arguing, saying, well, and it says we can block him from future future elections, from holding public office. So in their trial brief, arguing that the Constitution framers anticipated the threat of presidential abuse, the impeachment manager wrote, "It is unthinkable that those same framers left us virtually defenseless against a president's treachery in his final days, allowing him to misuse power, violate his oath, and incite insurrection against Congress and our electoral institutions simply because he's a lame duck. There's no January exception to impeachment or any other provision of the Constitution." I would agree, but you would have to hold the trial in that same period of time. because once he's gone from office, he's no longer a threat to the nation. Not that he was a threat to begin with, but if you're arguing that he's a threat, he has to really be a threat. A private citizen doesn't have the power of the president. Mr. Trump's lawyers argued in a 14-page filing, and we're going to go to that in a minute. So it's, we had earlier, I think it was yesterday, actually, the Senate voting 55-45 to reject a motion challenging the unconstitutionality of impeachment. Right? Remember we named these out last week, the 5 GOP senators who voted to continue on. And, those folks should go down in history as people who pandered to the populace, but pandered to the populace of their opponent, not to the idea of justice. The other thing that you've probably heard a lot about is in the Constitution, and I should have pulled this up, I'm sorry. In the Constitution, it says that the person who presides over the impeachment of the president is the Chief Justice. It doesn't ask, it doesn't say something like, well, ask the Chief Justice first, and if he says he doesn't want to do his constitutional duty, then pick someone else, which is what they've done, right? Senator Leahy is supposed to be now the person overseeing the trial. So very partisan politician. He's been there for years, and we're going to see how this thing shakes out. But this is not solid constitutional ground. There is no precedent for this. There's absolutely zero places where they can tie back without making huge leaps in the Constitution that our founders ever imagined that a president would be impeached after leaving office. There's some ridiculousness to that we should not stand for. And what really troubles me is that we don't have more people in the House of Representatives and the Senate screaming and kicking from the Republican side that this is wrong. And certainly the senators, before they take up this trial, should be screaming and yelling that this is wrong. We should hear people on the streets speaking out about it, and all the news channels that we should be hearing politicians saying, this is not constitutional, this isn't right, this is a sham. And all this is an effort that's an attempt to ensure Donald Trump can't run for president, or to further embarrass him because of some vendetta that Nancy Pelosi has against him. So I'm very upset that we don't see more Republicans slamming their fist on the desk and really pushing this forward. However, speaking of slamming their fist on the desk, funny that I pulled this up, and here's the picture of this is a Daily Wire article. Trump's lawyers offer former president's answer to impeachment articles on incitement of insurrection. The short of it is this. Do you remember during the election, and as the protests were going, every time that the president would push for something, they would say, well, we don't have standing. So the president says the Senate of the United States lacks jurisdiction over the 45th president because he holds no public office from which he can be removed. And the Constitution limits the authority of the Senate in cases of impeachment to removal from office as the prerequisite active remedy allowed the Senate under our Constitution. So that's exactly right. So if you aren't in office, oh good, he's pulled up the article. There's actually here on the Daily Wire, the Constitution is tied back here, so it's pretty easy to see. So I'm sorry, it's not the Constitution, it's the actual answer of the president. And I could read these all to you, and we could extend this podcast for several hours, but they maybe not several hours, maybe an hour. There are really good thoughts here in how they could rationalize, for example, in answer 6, the article of impeachment violates the 45th president's right to free speech and thought guaranteed under the First Amendment of the United States, or of the United States Constitution. So there are references here to the violations of the president's rights as well as to the unconstitutionality of this kind of movement. So it is, it's absurd that we're continuing on with this, that there are bigger things to do, lots of stuff to deal with in the world, as you well know. And yet this is where it is. This is how partisan our politics have become. So ex-Bush officials, so this is an American Spectator article, ex-Bush officials flee the party of Reagan and Trump. They're following the cult of the GOP establishment instead. Folks, I've talked to you all about a lot of the publications that we use, and the American Spectator is a great one. This is an article by Jeffrey Lord. Dozens of former Bush officials leave the Republican Party, calling it a Trump cult. So from Reuters, dozens of Republicans in former President Bush's administration are leaving the party, dismayed by a failure of many elected Republicans to disown Donald Trump after his false claims of election fraud sparked deadly storming of the U.S. Capitol. So, you know, I don't know how I feel about people just abandoning the party or the ideas of the party simply because you disagree with one of the people in the party. I think if we looked around collectively at every state house, at every local level election, we'd probably find dozens of people who happen to be running as Republicans or Democrats who we disagree with, depending on which side of the aisle we're on. And that's absolutely fine to have a disagreement with that. It's also fine if you choose you don't want to be a Republican, don't be a Republican, but don't come back to the next Republican president and try to grab a spot. You know, don't try to stay inside the swamp and, you know, I was a Republican and then I wasn't a Republican and now I'm a Republican again. You've made being a Republican great again. You know, I can just see these people who have lived off of government for a long time. Some of them, not all of them. It's just a tremendous amount of I don't know, dishonesty that feels like it always flows out of the swamp. And it's one of the reasons that the people, I think, really liked President Trump, is we felt as if we had someone who was working very closely with the people, for the people. That's probably better to say for the people. That there was somebody in office who didn't care about what he could get from office, but really cared about what he could do for the people. He was there to serve the people of America. I do believe that. I think that no one on the left believes that, by the way. I don't think anyone on the left believes that. So let's take a look for a second. I want to jump in. I haven't talked to you guys on a regular basis for a little while, and I'm in a busy season right now. That's why I look like the brawny man. So it was snowing here today. So much going on. People in and out of the office all day, and we're right back to it tomorrow and the rest of this week. So lots of great things happening. Chris Macklin Buckingham says, love DeSantis, would love to move there. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I mean, DeSantis is doing a fantastic job. He's really running. Ivan says DeSantis for president. Ivan Wallem. So yeah, I think that we need to take Como out of New York. How can we do that? Says Thomas Barnes. Thomas, I wish I knew how we took Comos out of public eye altogether. We could get rid of Chris Como at CNN, you know, Mario Como. I don't know. Just all the Comos just need to go-mo. All right. So I see Crawfordology has said they sent me the photo. I can't share it from my computer right now, but let's see. And as always, my lovely wife is helping direct me to what's happening. So, so the question is, what can we do? What can we do about Facebook? You know, the thing that I think we can do about Facebook is there are there are ways to fight back about this, and it's to be vocal but be polite. I will tell you, imagine that you have somebody looking at your account, because this has happened to a number of people that I know. They post something, and as they post it, they run into one of those checkers, over at Facebook, and not the fact checker necessarily, just somebody who looks at political comments and pulls them down, and suddenly you are public enemy number one. So I think you have to be careful about how you say things. And look, we don't want to be folks who just are out there making threats, but we'd love to be folks who are out there being vocal that, hey, I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's right. And that will probably move opinions further than somebody who takes a vehement, or an aggressive approach towards this. So continuing on with the comments, Judy Shumack Neal says, I do love our governor. What a guy. And I think she's talking about DeSantis, not my governor, I'm sure. Maureen Cornbow Dickey says, unfortunately, she just moved from Florida. I get it. Tammy Fleetwood says he's our ray of sunshine in this dim world. Yeah, silver lining, folks. The silver lining is the sun is shining in Florida, and so is freedom. And so is a government that's proactive for the people to ensure they have the rights and liberties, but not some of the crazy things that are going on. The $15 minimum wage, let's cut back on how many guns you can have. Let's try to increase. In fact, I saw something this morning, and it was my wife who shared it with me, on how people are actually proposing that we no longer identify the gender of a baby at birth. They want to be called babies until they're 4 years old, so they can choose what gender they most closely affiliate with. I can't get over this stuff, this was on Tucker the other night. I just can't get over that there are people who really think things like this. So we need logical people in government, like DeSantis, who I cannot imagine this happening down in Florida. I can't imagine that we're going to see that pop up in the Florida General Assembly, although I could imagine it happening in New York with Como. It's the right thing to do. Anyway, it's just, it's awful. It's awful. And the idea that we are changing our thought patterns, or people are trying to change our thought patterns so maniacally, right, into things that don't even make sense. Folks, what's wrong with calling these people crazy? I don't even think we should be nice about that. Hey, you are a lunatic. Get off of that platform and stop talking. You should not be allowed to talk to people. This is why we invented rubber rooms, right? To take people who could harm society and put them away, or harm themselves. What a terrible thought. So Betty Shugart Wheeler says, I finally got to the Crawfordology.com. But all it says is bottom is options to follow on Parler. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Don't see American One. So okay, on American One, there is also a Facebook page on American One. And Scott, I'll ask you if you could just share the link for American One. We are going to start, doing broadcasts from both American One and from Crawfordology. There are lots of reasons we want to keep Crawfordology moving along and keep it going around, and mainly it's the fact that we have lots of viewers coming through. I think through Crawfordology, and it is hard to move those people over to American One. But we would love for you to come see us on American One, and I won't say that we will forever and always be on Facebook. Period, but for the time being, you can find us on Facebook, on either American One or on the Crawfordology. So Wayne Pearson says, I hear Trump will be back by mid-April. Wayne, I'm just going to tell you, there are some crazy folks out there who are putting lots of things out that would not happen. And I don't mean in any way to be disrespectful, Wayne, but the way that this would happen, if for example, Joe Biden left office, Kamala, of course, would take his place. If Kamala left, then the Speaker of the House, then we get Nancy Pelosi. So we got a triple threat right now in the three that we would get. And it's not until I think the fourth person is the Senate or maybe the is it in the House or the Senate? Anyway, there's a whole numbering system that tells you right on down to the last man standing in Washington as who would become president should someone be removed. The only way that Donald Trump would become president this year would be if something really unusual and probably terrible happened, like a civil war. And I don't think we want that. So, boy, I'm sticking with Betty. I got some questions here from Betty. Betty says, I saw headlines this week about maybe some questionable illegal financial actions Pelosi was involved in. And if this is true, why can't she be brought up on this? So, Betty, one of the things that politicians are really smart about, and sadly, is they exempt themselves from a lot of rules. And one of the rules that they exempt themselves from is insider trading. So they will scream and tell on each other about it. And you saw that down in Georgia, right? That was one of the issues in the Senate race, was that one of the senators, maybe both of the senators down there, sold some stocks when they found out things weren't going to be going great. And, so while I don't like that system, I don't think that there's a way. Nancy bought some stock because she has insider knowledge about that Biden was going to decide that all vehicles in the federal government should be EV, electrical vehicles. And therefore, she says, I'm going to go buy a bunch of Tesla stock. So I think she bought about 125,000, or maybe it was $1 million. It was $1 million and something in Tesla stock just before Biden made the announcement. Of course, as you would imagine, that stock went up. They are allowed to do that. That is one of the crazy ways that they become millionaires in office. And maybe it's one of the reasons that people go to Washington. Hey, I can do the best insider trading as an insider. So, it seems like that there are things like that happen on a regular basis. It's unfortunate. I don't like it. I don't think that it makes a lot of sense that they do this. They also give themselves special healthcare programs, special retirements. Where else in the world could you retire with full pay after just 6 years? And, I put in a rough 6 years, man. I believe I deserve it all. And then not only do they get their pay, they get some other things that go with it. Andy Cassidy says most of them are sucking the life out of the people in the United States. And Rick says Trump said he would drain the swamp. It's coming. So I don't think that, and Rick, just back to that earlier comment, I don't think that the president is coming back. Debbie Mail says that's why we really miss a president that cares. Yeah, that again is one of the special things that we've been able to see about President Trump, is that he didn't care how good he looked. He wasn't trying to look the part of a president. He wasn't trying to speak with the eloquence of some great orator. He didn't have the nerve that Obama had, for example, to give the Queen, a recording of him reading speeches. That's probably not the kind of person Donald Trump is. So he's simply a person who looked at an issue, got in the mix, and said, "How can I fix this? How can I fix this?" And started doing it. So I heard, and folks, I don't know. We're gonna start. We're gonna be wrapping up here, so I'm gonna play the rollout music as we do this. Am I or am I not? There it is. So one of the things that I heard, and I haven't seen corroborating evidence on this, but I think it would be awesome if it happens, and I hope it does, is that it may be true that Elon Musk and Donald Trump Jr. are going to start a new social media platform. That their goal is to make it real for everybody. So I hope that there is actually one day a place that doesn't hold back on what we can say, lets us share our voices and speak freely about the way we feel, no matter how ugly and disturbing that may be to some people. But I hope you guys will have a great night tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys